You're watching Meet the Movie Press, and coming up, we're going to be talking about Captain Marvel, Will Smith voicing the Genie in Aladdin, and the future of James Bond. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Meet the Movie Press.
Good morning, Simon.
Morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. You got through the live interpretation of Creed outside the office then this morning.
Dude, yeah, crazy
Guys punch up shit. Yeah, by the way, I'm taking that to Sundance. I'm going to film it on my phone, and I'm taking it to Sundance. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Busy week.
Had a nice 420 yesterday.
Nice.
I know you like to celebrate that holiday.
I do. It's my favorite weed-based holiday of the year. Yeah.
I feel like all the holidays are weed-based holidays
They
for
should
me.
be. They should be.
Anyways, I am Jeff Sneider, editor-in-chief of the Tracking Board, tracking-board.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheInSneider. With me, as always,
Simon Thompson, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at SherbySimon, and there's a Facebook page. This is Simon Thompson.
Simon,
check that out. Like it.
Let's talk about our experience at Marvel this week. So,
Yes.
So you didn't do the whole rigmarole.
I did not. I was not
Okay.
invited to the whole rigmarole.
I had to fight to get myself invited. Yeah, and maybe now that they regret it. I don't know. I wrote a really nice piece about my time at Marvel. Listen, I really like the people up at Disney and Marvel. I really like.
The offices are fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah, no, it's
really
great,
cool.
and they put on a good show. I like the whole team up there, and so they had a whole bunch of journalists. They gave us a tour through Marvel. We saw like the art department. We saw post production.
Yep.
And we did like a half-hour sit-down with Kevin, which was really awesome. I got to answer.
Feig,
ask him
not
about-
Heart. Just want to clarify
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah,
I forgot.
okay,
Hart
cool.
is the Kevin of the show.
Obviously, number one Kevin. Feig is number two.
When is Kevin going to be in a Marvel movie? You never know.
Well, I would watch that.
He has Captain Underpants coming out, so he already sort of has a superhero thing. But
That is true.
But yeah, no, we saw a lot of cool stuff. Kevin answered all of our questions. He didn't dodge anything.
No.
And he sort of alluded to the fact that there was a director for Captain Marvel that would be announced soon. And I swear to God, I was in the room with him. I was next to him, and he said, "Our director announcements will be made soon." And no one picked up on this, and the S stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Plural. But then I was like, oh, maybe he just misspoke. Like, I'm not sure. So anyways,
Maybe he's developed a lisp.
right. Well, when there's blood in the water,
Yeah.
that's when the sharks come to play.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say that's when you
the
see a
next
doctor.
day, I was just
You need to go and see a health practitioner.
the next day I was texting all my sources trying to figure out what was going on with Captain Marvel. I kept getting referred back to that original shortlist that was reported with Nikki Caro, who went on to get the Mulan job, and Lorraine Scafaria and Leslie Linka Glatter. And I knew I was close, but I just wasn't close enough. In fact, one of my sources was like, "Oh, I heard that they got a guy," and that kind of threw me off. I was like, "What? I know that they want a woman for this," but what I wasn't thinking, my blind spot, was the rare male-female directing combo. And
Very
sure
rare.
enough, the next day, our buddy Justin Kroll of Variety dropped this one, and it was a doozy, folks, and I love it. Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden to direct Captain Marvel. If you don't know who they are the directors
A lot of people didn't.
Yeah, no.
Like, why are they teaming up these two people that we don't know to make a movie?
Well, we're going to have a big discussion about that because it was quite the talking point in my office. But I love Ryan and Anna. I partied with Ryan at the Ivy Film Festival.
Okay.
Where he brought Half Nelson before it was even released.
Great
Half
movie.
Nelson is amazing. It's a masterpiece. I can say that.
Some of Ryan Gosling's best work as well.
I think it is Ryan Gosling's best work. They went on to do Sugar, which is a really great baseball movie. And again, you make a movie with Ryan Gosling, like what a weird follow-up to go do this movie Sugar with no stars. That was really good. The next two movies didn't work quite as well. It's kind of a funny story with Zach Galifianakis.
Which is a great movie.
You think so?
I love that movie. It did absolutely nothing at the box office, but I loved it. Yeah. I saw it at the London Film
Interesting.
Festival many years ago.
I guess, I see how it could speak to certain people, and it addresses...
Do you mean people who are wrong? in liking it.
I
Is that what you're
I
saying?
was going to say mentally ill people or people struggling
no,
with
it's
some
brilliant.
kind of mental illness.
I thoroughly enjoyed that movie.
And then Mississippi Grind, which I know has a lot of fans. I didn't particularly love it. But I do recognize that there's something special about these two.
Yeah.
And when I saw the news, I was through the roof. I thought this was incredible. What did you do? I mean, what did you think?
I think it's great. I mean, it's a really shrewd move. It's completely unique, and it sets the movie out in another way from all the other stuff that is coming out that's superhero related. I think it's a really good idea. I like the fact that a lot of his stuff, as you say, from Half Nelson and stuff like that. It's dramatically strong, but it's quite kooky. It has that indie edge to it, which I think will be really quite fun. And I think to have that female approach to it, I think will be to have that level of understanding and that kind of involvement in the character, I think will be interesting too. And not action sequences adding like Fate of the Furious kind of like action sequences, but scenes that need to be particularly dynamic as well as dramatic. I think that'll actually be a really good pairing.
It's an outside the box hire. At no point did I ever think that I didn't even consider them.
Can you imagine when they got that call? Because the scale of stuff that they've done previously is not big budget Marvel movie, and then if they got that call and they're like, who's this? What are you joking? Is this? It's like a prank.
Well, that's sort of what Marvel said though when I was up there, is that they have a team that sort of can do these big budget effects and the action sequences. Like they want someone who will bring character to the movie and they're focused on character and story. And so in that regard, I think it's a great hire. Now, it was met with some derision in my office.
Yeah.
I have a very young staff. They're very politically correct, and they really wanted to see a woman direct this solo. And they felt like it was a slap in the face that Marvel is hiring. Is like they didn't trust a woman to direct the movie on her own, so she needed a guy there to babysit her.
You see,
I couldn't believe this reaction.
I get that point of view. It's not a point of view that I agree with, but Disney have, especially currently, and obviously looking at Marvel as part of the Disney empire, have a very strong track record right now of getting women to direct movies, especially when it comes to female characters. So it's not as if they're wimping out and going, oh, I don't know if we can give a woman a movie that's got a female character as the lead. So, they have invested in that already. So I don't think it's like they don't trust a woman to do it, because they trust a woman to make plenty of other female stories or female-focused stories right now.
I just, Kroll was tweeting about it yesterday, too.
Yeah.
He was sort of addressing, some of the criticisms. It's not like, hey, we found this female director, but we don't really trust her to do a movie like this. Let's bring in a guy and stick them together and make them work together. These two have been making movies. They are a team.
Yeah,
they're making movies together for years. As Justin said, it's not like they were paired together for this film. They've been together since they graduated NYU, so stop accusing Marvel of not trusting a woman to direct this. It comes off as petty and ridiculous. This is an awesome choice, and I completely agree.
Yeah.
Justin also said that Marvel had met with Marty Noxon and Lucia Aniello.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that last name, but she's the director of Rough Night, the ScarJo movie that's coming out this summer.
Yeah.
Marty Noxon did the anorexia movie To the Bone. She's a veteran screenwriter. I just love this, and maybe we'll even get to see Ryan Gosling enter the Marvel universe. What if they went back to him and could get him as like a villain?
That would be awesome.
We've never seen Gosling as a real villain, have we?
No.
Well, I guess in Place Beyond the Pines, but you're rooting for him in that movie.
I think it's also when you're talking about that there was the debate in your office about they don't trust a woman to do it. I think also if it had been a female director, there would have equally been people on the other side of the kind of the table who would have gone, oh, so it's got to be a woman, has it? A man couldn't do the job.
They said that it was going to be a woman.
Yeah, and they were right, because she is part of the partnership. She is 50% of the directing team. So they were right. I don't think it's a slight by having a man in there at all.
No.
They're both going to bring completely different things to the project.
Yeah.
But in a way that there is synergy. It's not like they have taken two people who don't usually work together and gone, oh, the man is going to be the training wheels.
Right.
Just in case the woman gets all, womany. They haven't done that. These are people, as you say, who work together, have a chemistry. They are a team. That doesn't make... It's an odd argument to me.
Yeah.
I kind of understand the logic behind it, but I don't agree with it.
I think it's great news for the Marvel Universe. I'm really excited to see what Fleck and Bowden are going to do with this movie.
And it'll be interesting to see, actually, if we then see say, Warner pick up on teams of directors and that kind of thing? Because Marvel have had success with, now this is not the first, obviously it's the first male-female pairing of directors, but they have had pairings before, Russo brothers, which have proved out very successful.
And Fleck and Bowden, which I didn't realize, they have done a lot of work in TV recently.
Yeah.
I think on The Affair and potentially Billions is the other one.
Yeah.
So
one which is more male-focused and one which is more female-focused.
Marvel continuing its track record of pulling directors from television, though.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I it's certainly, not being that familiar with Captain Marvel, it appeals to me more as an interesting director choice, which is what Marvel are doing more and more.
The concept art looked really cool. I dug her costume. She had like this shortish blonde hair in the artwork that we saw, and that's all subject to change now that Ryan and Anna are aboard. But it was a good presentation that they put on, and then we got to see Guardians of the Galaxy Vol.2. Now I'm not sure what we're really allowed to say.
Only reactions, not reviews.
I think that you and I were both mixed on it. And because we were mixed, and everyone else was so effusive with their praise, we looked like negative. We looked more in the negative camp, like we looked like the party poopers. And I don't feel like that.
No, but also, it is our job as journalists to be honest about what we think, and not just say. I know people who think that literally every single film they see is fantastic, is amazing, and part of that is because they don't want to upset the filmmakers or the cast.
And part of it is that they just are so enthusiastic about movies, and they just
that's
it's like they
great.
grew up reading these comics, and all they've ever wanted for 15 years is to see Ego the Living Planet on the big screen,
which is absolutely fine. But you have to step out of that sometimes and be just really honest. And what do you think? And I think we can say that we both enjoyed the film.
Yeah,
but there were things about it that we felt were lacking. We tweeted about it.
Right. Now, I maybe went a little bit overboard. I think a lot of people put out 1 or 2 or 3 tweets. I put out like 8 or 9. Maybe 2 of them were positive. The rest sort of focused on the film's flaws. And so I got a talking to about that. And I see that reviews were embargoed. I had given the movie 2.5 out of 4 stars, which I guess is entering review territory when you're putting a star rating on it. Star ratings associated with reviews. So I did decide to delete that tweet. Nobody asked me to or told me to. I deleted it on my own, and then tweeted out a public apology to Disney and Marvel and James Gunn, because whether I felt like I did it or not, inadvertently or not, they felt like I broke the embargo, and I don't. We're partners in all of this, the press and the studios, and I don't want them to feel like that. I want them to have a good relationship with those guys, so I tweeted an apology. Yeah.
I mean, that said, I see that viewpoint on that. So we can talk about this for a minute. Yeah. I see the viewpoint that adding the star rating does make it more of a review.
Yeah.
However, I did see a number of tweets that were, and people who tweeted repeatedly, a number of times, a series of tweets.
Right, were very positive, right?
That were a lot of them were very positive, but also it went into the film in quite some depth of what they liked, what they didn't. Which, even though I do get the point of view that, yes, putting a star rating in it is kind of going towards review territory.
Right.
But I think when you do 3 or 4 or 5 tweets where you point out what you did or didn't like about a film, 140 characters is a thought, is a little nib, a little blip. If you do 3 or 4 tweets continually to say what you liked about what you didn't, that to me is more like a review.
But so here's the thing. How many tweets equals a review? Like when they say you can go...
I would say one is a response, one is a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you need to spread it out over multiple tweets, it's fine. If you need to do one to say what you liked and what you didn't like, that's kind of, for me, that would be on the edge.
Okay.
But I think, to be honest with you, a reaction, which is positive or negative and some sort of justification in 140 characters, that to me, I would consider a reaction.
Well, I think that's the part of the discussion that I had with Disney. It's like how many licks does it take to get to the inside of a Tootsie Pop? How many tweets tips it over from reaction to review? Is it that 6th tweet that now that makes this a review? So that is the danger, I'm just saying, with studios saying you can react to the film on social media, just don't write a review. To me, that just means I don't want to see a story on your website. There shouldn't be a URL on your website. Twitter, you can't write a review on Twitter because those don't get quoted in ads as reviews. Like you wouldn't say, "Oh, go see my my review on Twitter.com." Like those are reactions.
No, you wouldn't. But I think when it becomes
I'm not
basically,
even a critic.
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to what is effectively a mini monologue on Twitter, I think then it does become borderline review. You don't have to do a 300-word piece to make it a full review. I think if you sort of, go into it in quite some depth, I think then it does become, within that format of what you are allowed to do, that does become somewhat of a review.
I just think studios need to understand that, journalists are looking to we're going to go right up to the line, essentially. So unless it's clearly delineated, where you can say, all right, you get to react in 1 or 2 tweets, but beyond that, you're embargoed. Like, they just need to be more specific. Because they're leaving it open to interpretation, and I think that's what got me in trouble.
But then I think they'll be coming at it from the other side. If you do, and this is not just a Disney or Marvel thing. This is
right. No, we're talking about all
across studios.
Right.
So it's by no means having a go at Disney or Marvel in any shape or form.
Right.
I think if you then get into the position, if you're a studio and you say you can have one tweet which is 140 characters, then people are going to go, oh, "What are you, the Twitter Nazis?" You're going to get that other side. We're going, "Don't tell me what I can tweet or not." Well, so it's a difficult position for them to be in, to then stipulate and say each person is allowed one tweet, which will not count as a review, because we encounter this kind of thing on a regular basis.
Right.
And people, when we go and see films, like many other critics and probably more so other critics or journalists, let's use the phrase journalists, when they know that we're going to see a film, they want to know what we think about it. Now, whether they agree with us or don't agree with us is completely up to them. And to be honest with you, they're probably either going to see the movie or not go to see the movie regardless. And Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 2 will, by the sheer fact of what it is and the success and popularity of the first film, be a massive success. I would not be surprised if Guardians of the Galaxy goes on. It's going to open strong, and it very well could go and get around the billion mark without much difficulty at all. So this is not going to affect the box office whatsoever.
That's the thing. It's like, what are my tweets going to keep people from buying tickets to this? Come on.
But I think, whether your film is Citizen Kane or 9 Lives, there are going to be people, or White Girls, where there are going to be people that think your film is the best film they've ever seen, or they just don't like it. And
I just felt like I was singled out a little bit because the reaction was mixed,
Well, it was.
I think I could have gotten away with 100 tweets if I was saying how great it was.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
Well, we're not allowed to review it, but here's my thought on the whole.
I was just going to ask you one question about it, but go ahead.
Cool. I think the thing is that Marvel have set the bar generally so high with their films that if you're constantly motoring at about 90% and you're anything less than 90%, so you're either not as good or equal to, then people are going to react and go, "Oh, I think it's a lesser film," and that is by no detriment of saying it's a bad film. Don't go and see it or anything like that. And I think Marvel generally, they set the bar very, very high with these films now. So it's a high standard to meet with every single movie that any director or any producer or any cast put out there. Because the standard is so high.
I think they're just genuinely surprised when people don't love their movies.
Well, I know people that really didn't like Beauty and the Beast, and I thought Beauty and the Beast was great. And it's like, okay, cool.
Here's we're going to move on to the news in a second, but last question. Did you think it was better than the first film?
No.
Neither did I. All right.
But full reviews, I think it's about until the 24th, so we can't get into any more of it.
The reactions were largely positive. People really liked the movie.
That's not difficult to find.
And in good news, James Gunn is going to be coming back for Guardians 3.
Which I'm really pleased about.
He will be writing and directing. He also has indicated this is going to be the end for this incarnation of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which I think is a good thing as well.
Yeah, to leave them wanting more.
Leave them wanting more. Have it as a trilogy. I think it works really well. You can round stories off. Things from the first film and things that will happen in the second film that we can't talk about. But, I think the 3 is a really solid number. It's worked well for characters like Iron Man.
He's not at 3. I mean, he had. There's 3 Iron Man movies.
There are 3 Iron Man movies. Yeah, but it also doesn't mean that we would see the last of the Guardians characters in other Marvel movies.
I didn't even know until he said it that Kevin said that Chris Evans will have played Captain America once a year from 2011 to 2019.
Wow.
That
is true.
Yes, because even like Spider-Man: Homecoming, which Captain America is in like a little TV spot. And I think he has a very tiny appearance in Thor: The Dark World. Those still count. So that was a crazy little stat. Anything else in the Guardians universe?
I don't think so. I mean,
move it along.
kind of.
What?
No, it's not actually. It's DC. I'm a moron.
All right, let's move it along
Yeah.
from Captain Marvel.
Okay, let's go over to the other Burbank studio. Let's go to Warner Brothers.
Sure.
Talk about Joss Whedon. Obviously, we found out a couple of weeks ago that he was going to be directing Batgirl. You know, great, really excited. And we have had the discussion on the show recently about whether or not it was going to be a name that was going to play Batgirl, whether there were a lot of names were bandied around. Numerous sites have put together lists of 10 or 15 people that they, basically women that could do a job.
Women that can act.
Between a certain
Here are
age.
some actresses.
Between a certain age, which are all, interesting to read. You know, I'm not going to detract from that, but there's a lot of them around.
They're
and
not
they've usually got the same names on
They're
them.
not that interesting to read, but go on.
But there are people that get, particularly excited about it. But now basically he's come out and he said that he's not going to. It's highly unlikely that it would be someone who's a name. Now, from that, do you take it someone who's going to be not a name in a, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, Tom Holland kind of way, so someone that's been around for a little while?
Yeah.
Or do you
That's what
think
I'm
it's going to be
thinking.
unknown? I think it's going to be the former.
Yes.
I think it's
The
someone who's
Alden
done
Ehrenreich,
some
Tom Holland.
stuff.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not going to be a worldwide casting search and we're going to pluck some.
It's not going to be a Saturday night
barista
reality show.
from Turkey, yeah.
Yeah. Although I hear the baristas in Turkey are very,
They
very good.
make a mean
and are
cup of
quite keen
coffee.
to leave right now. So maybe there will be an influx of
newcomer
Turkey
is
and-
a loose term in Hollywood. It's like if you're
Yeah.
not Brad Pitt, you're a newcomer.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting, which does kind of slim it down a little bit for who it could be, but I think it actually makes it more interesting. I would rather see someone who's done a couple of things rather than loads of things.
I think we're a ways away from a Batgirl
I
announcement.
think we are. Or maybe Justin will drop something later. You won't,
Yeah,
Justin, no.
exactly.
You know,
Everything we talk
You know,
about on the show,
Justin.
Kroll ends up reporting a half an hour after it wraps.
10:15. It's like, God damn you!
Whedon did give Marvel a heads up on
He
this,
did?
and they kind of gave him their blessing. It was like a go with God kind of thing.
Great.
Classy move though from Joss giving them the heads up because he knew that obviously Kevin and Marvel would be asked about that kind of stuff. And to Kevin's credit and everybody, they I would say that was the only topic that he did not really want to get into at the Q&A was just talking about DC. Like obviously he's very aware that there's a rivalry of sorts,
Yeah.
but he very classily deflected those kinds of questions.
Yeah. Which I think is kind of fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Otherwise it gets a little bit schoolyard. It's like, well, he said this. What do you think? I'm
Right,
gonna
it
tell.
becomes
That
like
kind of,
bulletin board material.
tit for tat, blah, blah.
Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
also one of the studios bidding for the rights on James Bond.
Yes.
It's Warner Brothers, Universal, Fox.
Yeah.
Sony's trying to bring it back.
Yeah.
And then a surprise entrant in the mix is Megan Ellison's Annapurna Pictures,
Yeah.
which has been staffing up recently, and they are going to be getting into the distribution game with Catherine Bigelow's next film, Detroit, which comes out in August. That'll be their first film that they are releasing proper. Simon, what should happen to James Bond? If you're the Broccolis, like, what do you do?
Well, they've had a long-running relationship with Sony, and I think it never hurts to have a shake-up. Universal have a very strong tradition right now of handling franchises pretty nicely, as do studios like Warner Brothers. They can do a really good job with things like Harry Potter. So I think Universal would be a really good home for it. However, I think when it comes to sort of action-based movies, action dramas, I think their radar's been a little bit off. So
Jason Bourne?
Yeah. So I don't think that might be the perfect fit. I think with the kind of Bond that we're looking at in this time, I think Annapurna might be it will be a gamble, but I think it might be an interesting because they would not be afraid to go with something that is grittier, slightly more edgy, take a slightly different distribution model on it. Fox, I think, I don't really see Bond fitting Fox.
I don't know what you mean by fitting. I mean, the thing about this franchise is that it is for bragging rights.
Yeah.
It will get you a large part of the market share at the end of the year. It'll bump up your grosses. It is a tentpole that you can build the rest of your schedule around. That's why they call them tentpoles.
Yep.
But financially, you're not going to make much money off of this.
No.
You know, Sony, if Spectre had performed like Skyfall, Sony would have been in line to make $38 million total, and it didn't perform like that. So they made less than $38 million distributing a fucking James Bond movie. The deal, you know, with Eon is that MGM has domestic distribution, but they're not distributing movies. So MGM partners with a studio. Now, with the Sony deal, MGM drove a pretty hard bargain. They got kissed into all these other movies, like 21 Jump Street, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So that is the same deal that is going to be on the table here. Any studio that wants James Bond is probably going to have to cut MGM into some of their tentpoles. Like, you know, if Warner Brothers really wants James Bond, are they going to give MGM a piece of Ready Player One? Or, you know, a lot of the franchises that are up there? I don't know.
Yeah, that's an option. I mean, when I talk about Fox actually not having, you know, I don't think it's the right fit. Suddenly occurred to me about things like the Alien legacy. Maybe that would be.
But it's like, these guys don't even have creative input in these movies, really, right? I mean, it's Eon has control of every line of dialogue, every casting decision.
Yeah,
so
but
it's
I'm
really
how
just
they
the marketing.
it and market
it's the marketing and distribution
Yeah.
teams. That's it. Now, Annapurna. People, you know, some Variety reporters, when I had sort of mentioned the possibility of how cool it would be to see Annapurna get these rights, some Variety reporters were like, yeah, but they've never distributed a movie of this size before. Well, they've never distributed any movie, but all these executives that they have hired in the last couple months, they do have that experience. It's not like these people have never handled anything like this. It's just the company hasn't because it's so young.
And also, Bond kind of markets itself. You just have to come out with a really creative way of putting glitter on it to make it shine.
It's all going to really depend on whether Daniel Craig is back. You know, I think that will have a lot to do with where this franchise ultimately winds up. Excuse me, I'm dealing with some heartburn this morning. I took a Tums, so yeah.
Brand
I had a wonderful meal at Mozza last night. It was delicious.
Oh, that's
you ever been there?
Yeah, it's like two blocks from my apartment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, James
Don't
Bond.
worry, I didn't want to meet up for a meal or anything. I was just sitting at home on my own, crying, going, "Oh, where's Jeff? Was local."
What was interesting?
Who were you with? Anyone exciting?
Oh, just some friends.
Oh, some friends, but not me. Okay. Oh, so
I love
real
you.
friends.
I knew I was going to see you this morning. So the interesting thing about the New York Times report is that Eon's only looking for a one-film deal right now, and I wonder if again that has something to do with Daniel Craig. You would think that if they were going to cast a new Bond, they would be looking for more of a multi-picture deal, like a longer-term setup. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with James Bond. This is what I think will happen. I think if Sony doesn't get it back, and to me, why wouldn't you go with Sony? Because they elevate. This is a garbage franchise when Sony got their hands on it.
Yeah.
A garbage franchise coming off the Pierce Brosnan movies that were increasingly ridiculous. I didn't really care for any of them. And then Casino Royale comes along and introduces a whole new side to James Bond.
Yeah.
Sony did a great job with this franchise.
Yeah.
Yes, it had its ups and
We're
downs.
not detracting from
Quantum of
Sony.
Solace, in fact, got fucked by the writer's strike. There was a really interesting piece online about how the writer's strike affected that movie. And yes, Spectre was a letdown after Skyfall, which was so good. But
Skyfall's
you have
in
to
any
give
franchise.
Sony credit.
Yeah.
So I think that they deserve a shot to make another movie.
I think they do.
If it doesn't wind up there, I feel like Warner Brothers has the movies, the big projects to kiss MGM into, and they have a great, marketing team. They always cut a great trailer, even if Warner Brothers movies aren't good. The trailers are always good.
Well, here's something Sky said in the chat, talking about Warner Brothers. What about, because obviously we haven't got a director for the next Bond movie. If that went to Warner, maybe you could get a Chris Nolan.
Chris Nolan, yeah. It's interesting to me that Paramount is not bidding on this movie because Paramount needs franchises more than anybody.
Yeah, they do.
But again, because it doesn't make much financial sense. It's like if you're going to invest in a tentpole, don't you want something that you're going to get
Yield
100% of the
Yeah.
profits on rather than 25%, which is what James Bond is, and meanwhile you're financing 50% of it. The numbers really are not good on this James Bond franchise. But
I mean, personally, I think it's healthy for there to be the vultures circling, but I think they're just circling because of it's been with Sony for a while.
Right.
Will or will not Daniel Craig return? And I think there's a kind of things where there's a little wound there that they can see they can little maybe pick at and this is probably the only chance in 10 years, 20 years they're going to get a chance to circle again and try and take a Bond franchise. I fully expect it to stay at Sony.
the truth is it doesn't matter because it's a fucking logo, in front of the movie. It's not going to affect the actual movie that you see. From what I understand of the arrangement. Staying at Warner Brothers, Clint Eastwood has settled on his next movie. It's a curveball. He was going to do Impossible Odds, which was this, I think it was Jessica Buchanan story. And then, of course, in classic Clint fashion, changes tracks at the last second, hopping from a plane to a train for the 1517 to Paris, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And oddly, this is a story in which nothing really happened. 3 guys stopped a terrorist attack from happening. So I'm very curious how he will dramatize that. I mean, it sounds like a really interesting story, and shit. You get a terrorist on a train with an AK-47. There's nowhere to go.
Under Siege 2.
Yes.
Just saying.
Maybe they'll bring back Eric Bogosian as the villain. But yeah, I mean, imagine that though. If fucking gunfire broke out on a train, where the fuck are you gonna go?
Well, the first half of the film will be the train being delayed, and so people just hanging out in a lounge.
Yeah,
at the train
it's
station,
setting up all the pawns on the chessboard.
Putting all the characters there. The guy who's about to start a new job, and someone else who's just had a kid, and it's his last day being a cop or something. That kind of thing. And then you get on the train.
Sounded like a great story. I mean, you don't need to.
Blah blah.
Scene by
Fill it
scene.
out. Enter screen.
Listen,
left.
I've learned not to doubt Clint Eastwood at this point in his career. He's coming off huge hits. American Sniper was the biggest domestic release when it came out a few years ago, and then Sully was great last year.
But I mean, you could look at Sully. I mean, one of his. I love that film, and I love Tom Hanks in it. You can look at that and go, it's a guy who landed a plane. We know that story.
Right, it didn't crash. Nobody died. How is this a movie?
The big thing? But the best thing was the story that we didn't know around that.
Right.
Which then became the bigger and better part. The plane crash was just the MacGuffin, and everyking else was the drama.
That's why I'm
and that was the character.
totally open to this train movie.
It's Clint Eastwood.
The
I trust him.
1517 or the 1715. No, it's 1517 to Paris. Does that mean the 415 in our time? Like, is that European time? Is that how they're doing it? What is the 1517? Is that the number of the train or like a time?
Like 317. The plane left. The train left at like 3:15 in like 24-hour clock.
Oh, I guess I
So it's like 17 minutes past 3 in the afternoon.
I don't know if they switched it over there. So
No.
it would have been 17 would have been like 4 o'clock 15.
No.
Whatever. Who gives a shit? What time this train leaves is going to be cool.
Well, if you're trying to catch the train, you care.
Come on, ride the train. All right.
So now
going
he's done
back to
planes
Disney.
and he's done trains. Do you think his next film is going to be in
An automobile, yes, exactly. That's what I think it will be.
That trilogy.
It'll be a Locke sequel with Tom
Yeah,
Hardy.
then there'll be a Segway spin-off.
Meanwhile, there is some kid out there,
Yeah.
Middle Eastern kid, who doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
But he's going to be the next Aladdin.
Doesn't know it.
And Will Smith is in early talks to be his genie. Imagine having Will Smith granting you unlimited wishes.
That'd be awesome.
It'd be amazing. Yeah. So, yes,
As the
reports
genie or
this
just
week.
as him? Because if he said, I wouldn't believe him.
The trades pretty much went with this. Other sites got told different things, but it sounds like there is at least an overture. There's been an overture made to Will Smith to play the genie. This is not like he had to turn down Dumbo because of a scheduling thing or whatever, or maybe it was a money thing, depending on who you talk to. But this is voice work.
Yeah.
For the genie, and voice work pays really well, and it takes a very small amount of time. So again, I feel like this deal will make. These are some big ass shoes to step into.
Also, if you look at the original movie, Genie was probably the bigger character.
Oh yeah, people don't.
So
who the
that's
fuck
your
is
tentpole
Aladdin
star.
in his
That's a
own
Will
movie?
Smith movie,
Right?
with other people in it.
Yes, I agree.
Great. And I think
That's why I think he'll do it.
and I think from his comedy elements as well, I think he's actually a really good replacement, taking a slightly different direction from Robin Williams. but in a respectful.
If you
kind
can
of
channel that early
way.
Will Smith, it's been a long time since I've seen a Will Smith that would be appropriate for the Genie, but I know that Will Smith lurks within him.
Yeah.
Like Fresh Prince.
Not the pursuit
Genie.
of happiness, Will Smith.
No, 7 pounds.
7
Genie.
pounds, Will Smith.
But so yeah, I
Bad
like
boys.
this. And again, if they are going with 2 Middle Eastern unknowns, essentially, as they said with the casting calls for Aladdin and Jasmine,
Yeah.
you need a big star for the Genie, and it doesn't get much bigger than Will Smith. So another coup for Disney.
Do you know who I'd like the parrot to be?
Who?
Kevin Hart.
Oh my God, I love it! I love it.
Yeah. Do you know who I'd like
you're
Jafar
so
to be?
fucking smart. Who?
Harvey Feinstein.
Jesus Christ.
Come on.
My friend just worked with him. He says,
Really?
very nice guy.
Yeah, he's apparently awesome.
What else do we got? Let's talk about some Fast.
Okay.
So,
Did okay at the box office.
yeah, listen. So, domestically, it made $98.8 million.
Yeah.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Now, that is $50 million less than the last one, which made like 147. That is a pretty significant drop, and it also just missed that 100 million mark, which is like a psychological thing. Like you want a big tentpole like this to open to $100 million. That said, these movies are becoming more and more international plays, and this
Yeah.
movie set the record for the biggest global opening of all time. So how can the press even be talking about it as any kind of disappointment? Simon, explain this.
We've discussed this previously on the show by the fact that there are a number of franchises. Pirates of the Caribbean is another one where the majority of the money, we discussed this when we were waiting for Guardians to start this week as well. The majority of the money for so many of these movies now, from a considerable margin, it used to be sort of 60-40, that kind of thing. But now we really are looking at about 70%. High 60s, low 70% of money being made overseas.
Right.
So the fact that we see that kind of figures and stuff not reaching that 100 million domestically, it shouldn't come as that kind of surprise, and it's happening a lot. So it's not like it's a blip. It's what's wrong with this franchise that it's not doing it? It's becoming an increasingly common thing, unless you get those enigma franchises. And also, are far along in this franchise, which has upticked and downticked. It's kind of going for
That's the thing. There has to be a peak, and
Yeah.
a $1.5 billion peak is a pretty good peak. That was what Fury 7 brought in.
And also, they've changed the dynamic of this film, where it was predominantly testosterone-y for the previous 7 movies, and now we have seen some more female characters. We've seen some characters obviously leave due to the result of not being alive anymore, like Paul Walker and Han, people like that.
Right.
It's kind of like, so we have seen a shift. So this, as they said when it was coming out, it's a new start of a new trilogy. So you're naturally going to get some people who are going to find that a natural breaking point with leaving a franchise, de-involving themselves in it, and then perhaps re-engaging later on. And, we heard about the fighting on set. We heard about this and changing the stories, and the fact that it's gone, like some of the Bond movies just went so ridiculous with like cars and submarines.
And that's what it's become.
Yeah, and some people are just like, I might sit this one out. It's happened previously in the franchise,
Yeah.
and I think it's happening again. I think, though, once it comes back, I think a lot of people will pick this up, not necessarily first weekend, but they'll find out that it's a decent watch. They'll pick it up second and third weekend, and they will be back for 9 and 10. And I think they should end it there, which is the plan.
I thought this movie was really missing Paul Walker. And also a signature
It's a shift
stunt,
in a major part of the dynamic.
Furious 7, which movie was it with the car jumping through, from one building to the next? I forget which one that was.
God, was that 5?
I can't even
5
keep
or
it all
6?
straight, but this movie didn't seem to have that signature stunt where, you have to see
Yeah.
Tom Cruise on the Burj Khalifa or whatever, or
Yeah.
hanging onto the side of a plane. This had, by the way, it had some really cool stuff. I forget who did the article. It might have been The Ringer, who looked into whether someone could actually take control of a whole bunch of cars, in a city. It sounded semi-plausible, actually, but it proved to be pretty difficult. Cypher, Charlize Theron in this movie, just does it in a few keystrokes. But I really like that sequence, and I like the opening racing sequence in Cuba. There were things that I liked. I just, the family thing's getting a little old. It's becoming a parody of itself a little bit. So I'd like to see them, approach it a little bit differently for the next movie.
I think that, as you say, it's moving away from that family thing. I think there are so many new characters that have been, whether positively or negatively, have been introduced. It has shifted that dynamic quite some way this time round.
Do you like that homage though? At the end, to
I
Paul
haven't
Walker?
seen it.
Oh, you?
I haven't
shit.
seen it.
Okay, never mind.
So
then.
I'm waiting to see it this week, but I didn't get time. But I haven't seen it. But and I didn't get the buzz on the street for this one here. Certainly in LA. I mean, the adverts were everywhere.
Right.
There's been saturation, but I wasn't getting.
It's still there's nothing coming out this weekend.
It's still a big hit, so we're not taking away from it.
It's going to do another 50 or 60 million this weekend domestic.
Yeah.
So I think that they're feeling just fine up there at Universal. Dwayne Johnson confirmed, by the way, he is going to be returning for Fast 9.
There was talk that he might not.
I don't know where that talk came from.
I think that's because he and Vin were having some issues.
He for better or worse, he has become the face of this franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not Scott Eastwood.
No?
No. What else did we learn about The Rock this week? That he wanted to play Jack Reacher?
Yeah, apparently it was one of the interviews he did on the press tour for Fate of the Furious. Yeah, apparently he was at one point in talks to play Jack Reacher, and he really quite fancied doing it, but it just didn't happen. Do you know what I do love The Rock, and I love watching his films. I have a huge amount of fun with them, and I always, even if they're not great movies, I leave with a strong degree of satisfaction. But I think having him as Jack Reacher would have been a bit of a mistake, because I think that would have made him too much like many other action stars. I liked the badass but elements of vulnerability and brokenness of Tom Cruise that he can bring as an actor that perhaps The Rock wouldn't have done the same
Dwayne
with.
Johnson much closer to fitting Jack Reacher's physical description in the books.
Yeah.
But listen, Jack Reacher, the first one, was great with Tom Cruise, so no, I don't want to see... I would not have wanted to see Dwayne play that character.
I mean, I think we all agree that there probably won't be a third Jack Reacher movie, which I'm kind of disappointed about, because I like Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher.
That second
I did
movie
enjoy
was-
that, but I
was
think
no
that
good.
that is not going to happen.
And
now,
speaking of
unfortunately.
things that aren't going to happen, that people claim are going to be happening...
Expendables 4?
No, you said that this is one of the items that you pitched this morning, that Man from U.N.C.L.E. sequel is being written?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I really would like to see that. Come on, you
I
enjoyed,
like Man
you
from
enjoyed
U.N.C.L.E.
Man
Yeah,
from
that's
U.N.C.L.E.
fine. Henry Cavill was very charming. I like Armie Hammer.
Of all the movies I've seen, okay, it underperformed, which was something quite criminal. But of all the movies that I've seen, as summer movies that I think deserve to have sequels because there's more to be done and more fun to be had, and they've established the characters, I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a prime example of that. I would love to see another story with those guys. And I didn't even like Man from U.N.C.L.E., the TV show. I didn't have any heritage with it.
Justice League with Henry Cavill is a huge hit, and Mission Impossible with Henry Cavill's a huge hit, and Tomb Raider with Alicia Vikander is a huge hit, maybe they go back to this well, But I don't see this happening anytime soon. Yeah.
Well, I'm still writing it. I'm not writing it. On my little notepad.
There, what was this? Oh, James Wan. Did you see this one yesterday? This is just a little thing, but Lionsgate picked up this movie Smart House that Alexander Aja is going to be directing.
Okay.
This sounds crazy. It's about a smart house,
right.
and a family goes into the witness protection program, and they stay there, and then some assassins come to take them out, and the house protects them. That's fucking awesome.
Wait, can I say something on that?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Smart House. That sounds exactly like an old
It's a movie.
Disney Channel movie.
Yes.
That I
Yes.
watched. Yeah.
But
okay.
this is going to be like badass, violent Smart House. I know that idea has sort of been out there, but that obviously there's been 25 years of technology. Now things are actually smart.
Yeah.
Smart cars, self-driving cars, smartphones. So Smart House, I really like the idea of this. It's like Home Alone if Kevin wasn't there.
Yeah. That's basically the pitch.
Yeah.
So that is, it has been a movie before.
Yeah, I mean, not exactly like that, but yes, there was a house that sort of was the defender of a kid or a family. I don't fucking know. I didn't see it. I'm gonna see this.
I do like that idea.
Yeah, it's fun.
I do like that idea.
HBO is on the verge of greenlighting a new Fahrenheit 451 movie with Michael B. Jordan and Michael Shannon.
I saw this.
Talk about a fucking pairing. And Ramin Barani directing, who did the great 99 Homes. Very underrated movie if you haven't seen that. That's a cool pairing, no?
Yeah.
The Michaels?
I mean, even if the film itself doesn't turn out to be any good, I mean, their interaction is going to be just amazing.
That's a good listen. This is one of the classic stories, Fahrenheit 451, based on the Ray Bradbury book.
Yeah.
This was one of those books in English class that I actually looked forward to reading and enjoyed. The rest were all cliff notes.
What?
But I love this casting, Michael B. Jordan, and the idea of him working with Michael Shannon, who was obviously in 99 Homes. Big fan of that.
That's a great movie. I'd love... Seriously, whenever that comes up on my little Amazon Prime, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a good movie. I totally didn't appreciate it at the time, but it was really...
99 Homes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
I mean,
really
it's
it
heavy.
didn't do
It's
the box
fucking
office.
dark.
Yeah, it is. But it was so good. And that still, to me, is like Andrew Garfield's best performance. But there you go, that's just me. Okay, so we talked about Man from Uncle Sequel. We talked about Fate of the Furious being the biggest opening weekend of all time. Last week when we started the show, we started off by watching the trailer for Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Now, off the back of that, after the show had, obviously things continued at the Star Wars celebration in Orlando. Did you watch any of that stuff streaming? Or were you busy? Washing your hair? I don't have that problem.
Washing my hair. No, I did not watch any of Star
All the way
Wars
down my back.
Celebration.
Oh, I did, because I'm sad and lonely. So basically we found out a couple more things. Han Solo, a couple of weeks ago there was the debacle over Han Solo.
We're going to hear his real name.
How he got his name, or how he got his name was the way that it was phrased. And everyone was like, oh my God, Han Solo's not his name? What is it going to be? Hannah Soletto? But no, it turns out basically when they referred to how he got his name is like how he developed his reputation of being Han Solo. We're going to find out some of that backstory.
I gotcha.
And also we have discussed this at some depth, and definitely there are people who discussed it online in way more depth than they probably is healthy.
Yep.
The Last Jedi, is it Jedi singular or is it Jedi plural? It's singular. So we don't have to talk about that anymore.
And Ryan was kind of like clear that it's referring to Luke.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see about that. I wonder if there's a curveball there.
I'm thinking whether it's like, well, the merchandise is selling pretty well.
He like intimated
never
that it
really
was
dead
Luke,
in
but
the
he
movie.
never actually said the words.
Yeah.
It was like, well, like who do you think we're talking about? But I don't know. For all I know, it looked like Rey certainly had some Jedi shit going on.
Yeah. So we'll see.
And speaking of Star Wars actors, Riz Ahmed joined a new movie, The
Yeah.
Sisters Brothers, which is going to reunite him with his Nightcrawler co-star, Jake Gyllenhaal. Dude, Riz,
on fire.
Jake, Joaquin Phoenix, and John C. Reilly. That sounds
It's
awesome.
a superb cast, isn't it?
Yeah,
Riz was,
that's shot to the top of my indies list.
Riz was on the front cover of Time for the 100.
I saw that. By the way, what is with Time? And now it's become a celebrity magazine. It's just like, here's the 100 most influential people, and by the way, they're all actors, and rather than get like normal people to write about them, we're just going to have actors write those stories too.
Yeah.
Actors on actors. Like becoming a variety thing. This is supposed to be Time. It's supposed to be highlighting like doctors and teachers and other influential people, but instead it's just another, we're going to sell it with celebrities. Not a
people are
fan,
so
Time.
boring.
Not a fan.
Well, no, but it's all about shifting units. In the online business, it's all about clicks. It's all about the click. Clickety-click.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
We're so fucked, our society.
Let's... Well, that was a positive note. Did you see the trailer this week for American Assassin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
had seen it at
literally
CinemaCon.
just got mentioned by Sky in the
Oh,
chat.
I think it looks good.
Yeah, it looks so good. I am absolutely loving Michael Keaton's Renaissance right now. Really, really strong. Well, it is. He's come back. I mean,
I was just
literally,
making fun of your
he
pronunciation.
couldn't get Renaissance.
He couldn't get arrested. You're right.
He couldn't
Now
get
he's in
arrested.
everything.
But he's fucking nailing it. in
Dylan
everything.
O'Brien looks super intense. This
Yeah.
looks like a young Born in Training kind of movie.
But good.
But what stood out to me is the terrorist attack at the beginning on like a beach resort.
Yeah.
You're like, there's nowhere to go there either. Like a train. Like, what are you got to run to the ocean and dive in? Otherwise, you're just fucked.
Do you know, I think it's really brave as well with doing... I think obviously we have to do movies about terrorism and we have to do things like, this mildly jingoistic looking sort of, the equivalent of American Ninja. This is our 2000s version of that. But I think when you start movies or you have things like a terror attack on a beach as a big part of a movie, I think it's kind of like we went back to obviously around 9/11 where certain films got pulled because unfortunately world events do tend to mirror or coincide with things, with events in the world. And I think it's interesting to see, and I think it is very reflective of what we're currently doing. But I think we'll see where that goes. I mean, whether that could backfire and they end up having to pull a film because something's happened in the world and it's not particularly tactful. I think it's a brave thing. But yeah.
We got to wrap up the show real quick. WGA strike looming. I'm getting indication that it could happen, but I don't think either one of us is really well versed in the issues enough to get into it right now.
No, I mean we'll find out soon enough whether or not it's actually going to happen. And obviously, previously when there have been writer strikes, it's impacted the industry negatively on things like Quantum of Solace, Transformers.
Sony and Amy Pascal picked up the Spec Princesses. My girl Gina Rodriguez got cast as Carmen Sandiego in a Netflix show. She's going to be animated.
Yes.
She's going to be voicing Carmen Sandiego. That's awesome for her. And then our last item before we sign off. J.C. Spink, manager and producer, died this week at the very young age of 45. He was a buddy of mine. One of the most talented guys in town, a real character. Someone, I think it was Scott Rosenberg on Facebook, wrote a really nice thing about how there's not a lot of characters in our business anymore. The edges have been sanded down on a lot of people. But JC always spoke his mind, and I'll miss his big laugh and his insight on Hollywood. So R.I.P. big guy. That'll do it for this week's episode of Meet the Movie Press. Simon, where can the good folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ShowbizSimon, Facebook, This is Simon Thompson, and out this week is Free Fire. I did an interview with Ben Wheatley, the director of that film. That is on Forbes right now, so do check that out. And I wrote some Marvel stuff as well.
And I am Jeff Sneider, editor-in-chief of the Tracking Board, tracking-board.com. You'll be able to read an interview with unforgettable director Denise Denovi, which is actually pretty interesting. That's going to be up later today. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the InSnyder. Thank you, as always, for watching the Popcorn Talk Network. Make sure to rate, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, guys. Yeah.
You'll be back next week. I will not.
I will be here next week. No word on who the guest host will be, but I promise it will be a fun one. Have a great weekend, gang.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Christian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network. We would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.